Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is February the 25th, 2025. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing okay. We've had a rough one past few days. Sorry, I missed an episode. That's like the first time I've just flat out missed one without like it being like, oh, I recorded late or anything like that. No, I didn't have it in me, y'all. Um, I know, if you listen to the last episode, I stayed. I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling that great. This has been the worst I've felt in a long time from like what I'm assuming is a cold. Um, it's just like what I thought was maybe like just inflammation or something from working out a little bit or whatever. Turned out to just be like, no, this is all sickness related. It's not a sick pump, bro. So, come Monday, I couldn't sleep. It was just so nasty. So I call off almost knowing that I'm not going to be going into work on Tuesday, today. And I'm just like, hey, all right, what are we going to do? What can we do? And I realized nothing. Like, I don't even have the energy to get up and press record. I can't go to the gym, which I was also sad about, breaking my streak. Y'all know that was like, you know, very beholden to me to show up every day for the gym and not let it stop me. But I realized that Sunday I had pushed and I was like, hey, good that you did that. Good that you tried. You showed up. You made a good effort, but we're not showing up, on Monday. No, we're staying home. So I just slept all day, which felt so not fun because I don't know. I'm not good at sleeping. I've said that before. I've said this before on the podcast. And it's generally about, around 6 hours, my back will just hurt. So I'm literally just rolling around, getting up just to take some Advil, get into a different position, and then I'm crawling back into bed like 30 minutes out, like after that. So yeah, I've just been a mess. The food has been rough. I will say we had a banger meal Sunday night. Steak bagels and some fries. It was very good, very yummy. It was my first time trying to air fry a steak, which turned out pretty good. But sadly, couldn't keep it down. So that was a bummer. You hate to lose it that way. But last night was it chicken tortilla soup? Pretty good for some soup. Honestly, just glad I kept it down. I'm bummed because this is looking like a soup week. The only silver lining for being sick like this is I lost some weight. So there you go. The plague diet really kind of kicked in, so that was solid. Also, another fun addendum today as I was chilling, I was just kind of gaming a little bit, and the smoke alarms are going off, and I'm like, okay, whatever, that happens. And then I proceed to hear more smoke alarms. I'm like, this can't be good. So I literally go out in like just an unzipped hoodie, I like in some raggedy, sweatpants. I don't give a fuck. And it's just everything's covered in fucking smoke. Everything is smoky and smells like there's a burnt body. And I was like, I literally just exclaimed, "What the fuck?" Which I seem to. This is the second time this has happened, and I see this one guy. He's opening a door, but somehow I know he's not related to this. So I'm like, okay, cool, good Samaritan type shit. And I go halfway down the stairs, and look, it's the same motherfuckers from last time. If, the longtime listeners might know, where it's just like, you are trying to burn down our entire complex over some what, fritters? What? Like, you can't be serious. Get it together. That's insane. Like, I understand, hey, you fuck up every once in a while. It's a light thing. But whatever they're doing downstairs, they're breaking some bad. It's terrible. Oh, excuse me. So that's where we're at. I more or less caught you up on all the Joneses. Oh, I will say, we did get to the gym today. I forced it. I pushed for it. Oh, it was not easy, but I'm less achy today, so that was good. Just it felt like, especially on the cardio, it felt like I was knifing my lungs. So like on the treadmill, I couldn't go as hard as I wanted to, unfortunately. But overall, it was good. I think like showing up is the most important thing. That's why I do what I do. So yeah, that's everything. We're all caught up. Also, shout out to like the one person who hit me up and was like, "Hey man, I hope you feel better, bro. Thank you." That was that like that in those moments because I'm a single man who just goes into baby mode when I'm like this. So just having a friend hit you up and say, "Hey man, I heard you weren't feeling good. Hope you do better." That's flowers to me. Like I had friends making fun of me for being sick. It was terrible. Like, man, so, shout out to the real one. The real one. Anyway, let's do our startup, which I gotta say is diminished. But we move. We're gonna, still queue it up and then we'll get into some news. Oh shoot. Here we go. How to open up this lemonade. All right. Our first story comes from Reuters. U.S. Ukraine agree to terms of critical minerals deal. The U.S. and Ukraine have agreed on the terms of a draft minerals deal central to Kyiv's push to win Washington's support as President Donald Trump seeks to rapidly end the war with Russia. Two sources with knowledge of the matter said on Tuesday. Trump told reporters that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wants to come to Washington on Friday to sign a very big deal. This comes after the two leaders exchanged hostile words last week. Trump also said some form of peacekeeping troops are needed in Ukraine if an agreement to end the conflict is struck. Moscow, which launched an invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago, has refused to accept any deployment of NATO forces. So I will say, in terms of this whole row between the three countries, this is the first time that Trump has said at least one capitulation on Russia's end, which is to allow some form of peacekeeping. I think he specifically said like, well, the Europeans are going to have to, fork that up in some way, shape or form. And I know that some European nations have been like saying, I know UK, Chris Starmer's like, yeah, we're upping our military, defense, da 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 da. We'd be down to do that. But I mean, we don't know how concrete that is as of yet. Let's see. Trump's rush to impose an end to Russia's war. Cannot speak. Trump's rush to impose an end to Russia's war in Ukraine and his lurch towards Moscow has stoked fears of far-reaching U.S. concessions to Russian President Vladimir Putin that could undermine security in Ukraine and Europe and alter the geopolitical landscape. I will say I was kind of surprised because this deal is pretty steep. I think Trump said initially he wanted half of the Ukrainian minerals, which, it was $500 billion worth of minerals. And Zelensky came out and said, that number is way too high for even the support that you've given us. Also, it's worth noting that, like, you gave us a good chunk of that as grants. Like, it's not something that we have to pay back. So that's crazy that you're wanting to circle the square now this way. It definitely feels like some kind of predatory deal that's being set up here so that Trump can kind of get what he feels is owed to America. Obviously, I think this is fucked up. I think it's Trump taking advantage of a situation while he's saying, hey, I'm doing the thing that no one else could. So I'm curious to see. I think he's supposed to meet and come on Friday and sign this deal. If those are the exact terms he's signing, because that's a crazy deal. It's not a good deal at all. I mean, it's good if you're an American. I mean, yeah, I'm American, but it's not a good deal flat out. So, but I get it because you're in a rock and a hard place if you're Zelensky. This guy's calling you a dictator, saying that we need to run elections in Ukraine, yada yada yada, all this shit, and he's saying, hey. Most importantly, if you want to keep us in the game, if you want to keep us involved, you have to do this. You have to make this deal. So, he's definitely, like I said, in a rock and a hard place here. Let's see here. Another thing I wanted to kind of talk about as we segue, something that's kind of been developing that I didn't talk about, and I'm just kind of making a quick aside here. The Associated Press has been kicked out of Trump's press pool, the White House press pool, because they didn't fully make the concession on the Gulf of America issue. Essentially, they're saying, hey, in references on things of America, sure, we can say that, but in our overall style guide, if we're talking about, from perspective of another country, we're not gonna say the Gulf of America. We're gonna say the Gulf of Mexico. The Mount McKinley thing, whatever, fine. That's an American thing, but this is not an American thing. Only it is, a Gulf of multiple places, and it's initially the Gulf of Mexico. You're being weird. We can't make that concession. And because of that, essentially, the White House has barred them from the press pool. So they have to watch by video. They're not allowed to be there and ask questions. They're essentially getting iced out. There's been, lawsuits pending on this issue. It's still an ongoing thing. But yeah, that just kind of goes to show how petty this administration is. So, I wanted to at least speak on that a little bit. But let's take to the skies. From ABC News, American Airlines flight diverted to Rome over possible security issue. An American Airlines flight out of New York was diverted to Rome on Sunday over a possible security issue, the airline said in a statement. American Airlines Flight 292, which departed from John F. Kennedy International Airport, was heading to Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi. Italian Air Force fighter jets escorted the aircraft to Leonardo da Vinci Rome, Fiumicino Airport, where it landed safely, the airport told ABC News. Excuse me. So we love that this ended in a good way. Obviously, getting diverted is no fun, but hey, you got your life. You didn't blow up. There wasn't a crash. We love to see that. It looked like there was a bomb threat. Yeah, a senior official briefed on the matter told ABC News a bomb threat was received by email, but it was deemed to be unfounded. But naturally, you got to take some shit like that seriously. There were 199 people on the plane, as well as 15 crew members. Passengers were being bused to the terminal for screening. The aircraft will be checked. So, a little bit of sky news there. It's kind of sad that, in a way that this is kind of good news that I'm bringing an airplane story, an airline thing that's not ending in a tragedy. We love that. But, yeah, crazy that, people do bomb threats. I don't know. That's such crazy energy. Just be like, I'm going to, in an email? Wow. Hey, as a guy who doesn't get any emails, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com, it's crazy that people are emailing airlines like, there's a bomb in your craft. Blah, that's some 90s shit. That's some I feel like that's something out of a Die Hard movie or something. Anyway, we have, there we go. I skipped ahead a little bit. From the Associated Press, mentioning them. Supreme Court throws out Oklahoma inmate Richard Glossip's murder conviction and death sentence. The Supreme Court on Tuesday threw out the murder conviction and death penalty for Richard Glossip, an Oklahoma man who was found guilty in the killing of a motel owner, but has steadfastly maintained his innocence and averted multiple attempts by the state to execute him. Glossip's wife called the decision an answered prayer. Glossip, now 62, has spent nearly half his life behind bars for his role in a 1997 killing at a motel in Oklahoma City. Prosecutors' decision to allow a key witness to give testimony they knew to be false violated Glossip's constitutional right to a fair trial. The justices ruled in a case that produced a rare alliance of his lawyers and the state's Republican Attorney General in support of a new day in court for Glossip. Glossip is entitled to a new trial, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote for the 5 justices. Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito dissented, voting to uphold the conviction and death sentences, while Justice Amy Coney Barrett would have allowed a state appeals court to decide how to proceed. Thomas wrote that the majority had cast aside the interests of victim Barry Van Tressy's family. The victims' relatives had told the High Court they wanted to see Glossip executed. A message left with Van Tressy's brother, Ken Van Tressy, was not immediately returned Tuesday. Now, I gotta say, as much as I sympathize with victims in these stories, I think taking this line is fucked up. Like, yes, you want justice. You want to see it fully fulfilled. Of course you do. But at the end of the day, that sense of justice should not override the law. It shouldn't just be like, hey, we're going to bury this guy no matter what. He's guilty. We know he is. He's the guy. But if there's evidence that's clearly saying, no, this isn't the guy, that's reasonable doubt. That's there for a reason. You have to look at that and examine that. So to just throw that out or just say, we're going to put on this guy on trial and on the stand, and we don't care if his shit's not correct, like it's loose, it's suspect. We don't care. We're just gonna run it anyway because we want to get this guy behind bars. We want to get this guy in the chair. Like that's crazy to me. It always will be crazy to me. We don't, y'all know how I feel about death sentence. I don't want to go on a whole long rant about that shit. But let's see here. Let me scroll ahead. Glossip, who is currently housed in the maximum security Oklahoma State Penitentiary at McAllister, is expected to remain in prison at least until the state decides whether to retry him. Oklahoma Attorney General Gunther Drummond said at a news conference following the Supreme Court decision. I do not believe Richard Glossip is innocent, Drummond said, though he sought and praised the court's ruling. He also conceded it might be difficult to put Glossip on trial again after so many years. Let's see. Glossip was convicted and sentenced to death in the killing of Van Tressy, who owned the motel where he was beaten to death with a baseball bat, in what prosecutors have alleged was a murder for hire scheme. Glossip was an employee. He has always denied killing Van Tressy, although he acknowledged misleading investigators in the aftermath of the crime. Another man, Justin Sneed, admitted to robbing and killing Van Tressy, but testified he only did so after Glossip promised to pay him $10,000. Sneed received a life sentence in exchange for his testimony and was a key witness against Glossip. In 2023, Drummond said boxes of new evidence persuaded him that Glossip's trial was not fair. The new evidence showed that prosecutors knew Sneed lied on the witness stand about a psychiatric condition and his reason for taking the mood-stabilizing drug lithium, Sotomayor wrote. Drummond was also concerned about a box of evidence in the case that was destroyed, she wrote. The evidence included motel receipts, a shower curtain, a masking tape, and that could have been potentially proven Glossip's innocence. At least 5 justices voted in 2023 to block Glossip's execution while his case played out 13 months ago. The High Court agreed to take up the claim that his trial was unfair. Justice Neil Gorsuch did not take part in this case, presumably because he participated in it at an earlier stage when he was an appeals court judge. Now, this was an interesting fact to me. I don't know why. Oklahoma has set execution dates 9 times for Glossip. He has eaten 3 last meals and has been married twice while awaiting execution. Now, the last 2 parts are very wow to me. Very, okay, cool. 3 last meals? That's dope. As a guy who, hey, I play my cards right. I don't get any last meals, except, the one for, hopefully of natural causes, whatever. 3 though, that's kind of succulent. That's kind of crazy. Obviously very tenuous, very stressful. I don't want to die, But hey, 3 last meals and you're potentially not going to have to deal with this shit because I don't know, most likely, I'm speculating here. I think they're going to let him out. If you don't have there's literally evidence that is just missing now. Too much time has passed. So I don't know. But then also married twice while awaiting execution. So, hey, sometimes you're lucky in life. Sometimes you're lucky at, potential end of your life. I don't know. Let's see here. The court faced 2 legal issues, whether Glossip's rights were violated because the evidence wasn't turned over and whether the Oklahoma court decision upholding the conviction and sentence reached after the state's position change should be allowed to stand. They also talk about in Glossip's first hearing before the Supreme Court, the court stopped his execution in 2015, then ruled against him by a 5-4 vote upholding Oklahoma's lethal injection process. Sotomayor and Justice Alina Kagan, also part of Tuesday's majority, dissented 10 years ago. Glossip avoided execution then only because of a mix-up in the drugs that were to be used. That's crazy. That's another crazy dodge. So, like, hey, in some ways, dude's kind of lucky. Obviously, very unlucky to potentially go through this. I mean, I don't know, maybe, whatever. But Glossip was initially convicted in 1998, but won a new trial ordered by state appeals. He was convicted again in 2004. So, man has been through it. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting story that popped up on my feed today. So I was like, yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about that. Now we are going to close out with a verdict from the Graceland situation, or at least a plea deal that popped up. So yeah, let's go ahead and do our last break, and we will close it out. All right. Actually, let me get some water too. All right. Suspect in Graceland fraud pleads guilty in connection with scheme. I don't know if I said this from ABC News or not. Whew. A Missouri woman has pleaded guilty in connection with what prosecutors called a brazen attempt to fraudulently put Elvis Presley's Graceland estate up for auction. Lisa Findley pleaded guilty to one count of mail fraud in U.S. District Court in Memphis, Tennessee on Tuesday. As part of a plea deal, prosecutors agreed to dismiss one count of aggravated identity theft that was previously filed against her. When asked if she understood what she was pleading guilty to, Findley said yes, she did not make a statement explaining her conduct. Prosecutors are recommending Findley receive a 57-month federal prison sentence. She's due back in court for sentencing on June 19th. Findley, 53, initially pleaded not guilty to the charges in the wake of her arrest last year. The trial has been scheduled to start in mid-April before Tuesday's change of plea hearing. In the plea agreement filed on Tuesday, Findley admitted that the government's factual basis in the case is true and accurate, and that had the case gone to trial, the evidence would have established her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The mail fraud charge carries a maximum of 20 years in prison. Federal prosecutors said Findley formed a brazen scheme to try to extort a settlement from the Presley family. As part of the scheme, prosecutors said Findley forged the signatures of Elvis Presley's late daughter, Lisa Marie, and Florida notary Kimberly Philbrick in order to claim that Lisa Marie did not pay back a $3.8 million loan from a purported company called Nasani Investments that listed Graceland as collateral. Philbrick spoke exclusively to ABC News, telling Good Morning America in August 2024 and Impact Nightline in October 2024, that she never notarized anything for Lisa Marie Presley and has no idea how her name got involved in the scheme. Nasani Investments, an unregistered entity that prosecutors said Findley was behind, filed public notices in May 2024 stating that it would auction off Graceland at the front of Shelby County Courthouse. A Shelby County chancellor issued a temporary injunction at the 11th hour that prevented such an auction from taking place, citing an affidavit from Philbrick that stated her signature was forged and she never met Lisa Marie. So, cool to finally get at least somewhat of an ending on this. I mean, obviously we gotta get the sentencing and then we'll fully close it there. But yeah, it was definitely a strange happening, like out of nowhere. I know Lisa Marie Presley's daughter had come out, with this information and, said like more or less, she was fighting for, Graceland to make sure that she would, keep it because this isn't right. And then like pretty much immediately within like the same week, we find out that this Nasani Investments is sussy as fuck. So, everything kind of came tumbling down really quick. So crazy that Findley tried this scheme and thought it was really going to work. But to be fair, she kind of made it somewhat close. She was trying to get to that auction. But yeah, so Graceland continues. And there we go. That'll be the episode for today. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/Isaiah News. Feel free to hit me up for the freeway, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow any of the socials. It's a good way to keep up with me or the podcast, what have you. Hopefully you're subscribed to the YouTube. You're following on TikTok. You're following on Spotify. Leave a like. Leave a cool comment on the episode. Sharing is caring. And thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.